on this edition of Arts and Minds.
I don't subscribe to the idea that art comes from the head.
Painter Tony Scherman.
Art isn't a good idea. It's not a practical idea.
Those stories on this edition of Arts and Minds.
I don't subscribe to the idea that art comes from the head. Art doesn't come from the head. It's not something that's a good idea. Art isn't a good idea. It's not a practical idea. It just forces its way up.
Canadian-born and British-trained painter Tony Scherman is known as a contemporary master of the encaustic medium. It's a painstaking and difficult technique of painting with molten wax and pigments. It gives his art a texture that would be difficult to match with acrylics and oil.
The encaustic gives the paintings tremendous texture and tremendous depth so that he can really create a lot of moods, a lot of spirit in the paintings.
Scherman started painting with wax in 1974 as a student at the Royal College of Art in London.
For 100 years now, the dominant style has been the abstract style. And most artists have been leaning in that direction. And Tony is absolutely counter to that.
Sometimes I write fragments of thoughts, or sort of, I don't know, some half-assed poetry. Napoleon and drag and the powder that he used. So I guess that's the title of the painting.
It's not that he doesn't appreciate abstract painting or doesn't enjoy it, but he's gone his own way.
Tony Scherman has produced a large body of work over the past 25 years. In each of his series, Scherman paints well-known figures from history, myths, and contemporary life, portraying them in both their public and private personas. With his extreme close-ups, he brings the viewer in dramatic proximity to his subjects.
I have used the codes of cinema, the conventions of cinema, and fused them with painting. It is cinema that brought us that view, not painting. But now painting can carry that view on.
The closer you get, the more realistic the person becomes and the more vulnerable the person becomes, and the deeper you can see into the character's soul.
Jocasta, that's Oedipus's mother, on their wedding night, I reckon.
Jocasta is the central figure in Scherman's series called The Seduction of Oedipus, which is based on the Greek myth Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. Here he mixes in 20th century icons. It's his way of interpreting the mythological characters.
I have tons of photographs. I have them all cataloged. And stuff comes out. And I was thinking of the god of music, and I was thinking, I'd just seen Mick Jagger when he was in Toronto, and I found a picture of him. Well, here's Mick. Here's Mick. I knew that this was Apollo, and Apollo was going to be in the Seduction of Oedipus because he's the oracle, so he's the sort of MC.
He's elaborating on the whole play. He's taking the liberty of imagining other characters that could have been in it. It's his imagination gone perhaps wild, but what he's doing is he's making a Greek play a contemporary play.
Unthinkable Thoughts is a series by Tony Scherman of 40 drawings and paintings on paper, anchored by 2 large-scale paintings of Napoleon in drag and Anthony Hopkins as Hitler. The entire collection was sold before the exhibit opened to the public.
Yeah. This is very direct.
I'm overwhelmed, and I did not expect to be. I had heard about it, and I came in and I looked at it and I went, oh my God, this is just extraordinary. I see these fragmented bodies looking out at me from these things that are obviously not bodies. To see eyes and lips fragmented in this wax substance is just extraordinary.
I think you see, a touch of Rembrandt. I think you see, a touch of neo-expressionism in this work, but it's very personalized. It's very much Tony. It's very much, I think, his personality, lodged in art history.
So much of his work, and I think the work that we see here tonight seems to me to be about the decay of tyrannical regimes. Even the pictures of fruit, for example, seem to be lush, vivid, three-dimensional bits of fruit that are in decay, that are falling apart. You know, the decadent moment has passed.
It can be very offensive to a lot of people, but it pushes certain buttons, and whether one likes them or not, it evokes certain thoughts. They're very thought-provoking, good or bad, and that's what Tony likes to do.
A theme that I'd always wanted to work with was the French Revolution. I'd grown up in Paris and had become suspect fairly early on about Napoleon and the whole thing.
In his series Chasing Napoleon, Scherman paints figures from the French Revolution and Nazi Germany.
When I was a kid, and I remember seeing the tomb at Les Invalides and thinking, this is the tomb of an Egyptian god. I mean, this isn't the tomb of a mortal. I mean, this guy, Napoleon Bonaparte, is being deified. So right as a kid, there was a kind of weirdness about it. So I went to paint a series on Napoleon of him having a shave through his life. And I started to paint the corollary field, if you like, that he came out of. That is the world that he came out of and all the inverses. So I start painting characters from the French Revolution, but as I'm painting them, I'm thinking, you know, God, some of these guys remind me of some other guys that I know who were running the Third Reich, and there were all these parallels.
He's trying to achieve greatness, like most painters. He's trying to make the work somehow significant for today using traditional means.
Conversations with the devil.
Now, how do you do that? Well, it's a complicated voyage, and he'll either succeed or not. But I think he'll do it because he's dogged and greatly, greatly gifted.
My ambition is to exculpate new meaning. I hear it on Law and Order all the time, and I thought it sounded good, but exculpate new meaning about painting, not about the world, about painting.